I remember us lying in bed one night and I said to him, well, you just can't die. You just can't die. And he said, I won't. At that point, you still hang on to this thread of hope.
He was a fabulous father, and he was a brilliant brother to me and to my other siblings. And all of us miss him incredibly. Like, this has been an incredible period of trauma for our family. I think Dylan really wanted to ensure that there were mechanisms in place for Tully to be supported with the girls after he died.
Tullia Maguire is trying to pick up the pieces since her husband Dylan passed.
So we were high school sweethearts. We started dating when we were 16. We lived together through uni. We got married eventually and we moved to the Taree area, which is where we had our children and we're raising our children here. Dylan was always passionate about architecture. It was his life aside from his family. It was the thing that he woke up to do and he loved doing.
What he was most concerned about, I think, was probably more finishing off some of the projects, like he would earn money from that. So he really worked really hard towards the end to make sure that all of his projects that he was currently working on were in a state that he could hand them over.
And why do you think he did that?
To provide for his family.
I'm standing in front of a home designed by architect Dylan Wood, who died of terminal cancer in 2023. But he didn't realise that his life insurance had been cancelled when he became terminally ill, and it left his 3 daughters and wife financially insecure.
That had actually caused quite a significant amount of stress, I think, for him and for Tully, knowing that there was this issue with his life insurance policy. Obviously, the fact that his account was deactivated, honestly, without his consent, it's pretty distressing. To know that you're going to die, not a huge sum of money, but I think everything helps when you're in a situation that you've lost your partner and you have 3 children to support.
I think he felt like he'd failed us. I think he felt like he hadn't left us with what we needed. Me and the children, obviously. I think that weighed on him. There was a sense of hopelessness because there was really nothing we could do.
In 2019, the Morrison government introduced new laws where life insurance policies attached to super would be cancelled if no contributions had been made in 16 months. Protecting Your Super legislation, also known as PYS, aims to reduce insurance costs eating into superannuation accounts by cancelling life insurance attached to accounts that have been inactive for 16 months. The life insurance policy, totaling $358,000, cost Mr. Wood $353 in fees every year, which is taken from his super account. A person must opt in to keep their insurance once notified, and if they don't, the life insurance is cancelled. In email correspondence, the company did notify him that his life insurance would be cancelled on the 17th of May 2021. He received 1 email in October 2020 and a second in January 2021, noting he could opt in to keep his insurance by transferring money into his superannuation or pressing a link. When he received a 3rd email on May 19th, 2021 that confirmed that they'd cancelled the insurance, they outlined that he still had 2 months to reverse it by pressing a link only. Bank documents show he then transferred $200 to his super account, and his family say he did not receive any further communication, so believed he had opted in. Dylan's wife Tully is the one who discovered that the policy had been cancelled while they were planning for their financial future.
It is a stomach-dropping moment to see that. I mean, in terms of expectation, I was expecting to see a number over $100,000 and to see that it was nothing. Yeah, it's an element of disbelief, but also panic, obviously. Like, how am I going to do this? That's not there. I was really scared.
Dylan's family believe it was clear that he sent the money to make sure his life insurance would remain in place, but we're told as he had not pressed the link, it was not sufficient evidence to show that he wanted to opt in.
So they shouldn't send you 2 emails that give you 1 instruction and a 3rd email that gives you a completely different instruction, and then not be flexible on accepting either or.
in some ways it's kind of slightly hiding behind a bureaucratic process and maybe not accepting responsibility that those processes are not necessarily clear. You have to click this link as opposed to just taking the action that you've been directed to take. I think it lacks clarity.
I think a lot of people don't carefully read every single line of every single email. Dylan received 3 emails from the same company. 2 emails said one thing. The 3rd email said something different. He acted on what the first 2 emails said. That was a mistake on his behalf, but I don't think a reasonable person could misinterpret what his intent was by making a payment to his superannuation fund.
I think basic human empathy would prevent you from feeling like that was an okay situation.
We offer our heartfelt condolences to Mr. Wood's family. We acknowledge the distress experienced by Mr. Wood and his family following the cancellation of his insurance due to the PYS legislation requirements around opting in. Mr. Wood's super account had been inactive for 16 months, and because he did not opt in to maintain his cover within the legislated timeframe, we were required to cancel his cover. A review of the complaint by the Australian Financial Complaints Authority found our action reflected our requirement to comply with the law and apply it consistently to all members.
The Association of Superannuation Funds Australia told news.com.au that they had expressed concerns about the legislation when it was first introduced. They also believe reversing decisions could have a knock-on effect.
We are a pretty disengaged population in our super. So people lost something that could have really helped them in the future without knowing. So ASFA did at the time oppose the design of that legislation because we know it's impossible to reach 100% of the members with emails and letters, and details often aren't current. ASFA did predict that that coverage of insurance would be cancelled, and that a member may go on believing they are insured, that a death or disability might occur, and then there's no payout because there's no policy in place. So it was a predictable sort of set of events. Super funds and trustees had no choice but to implement the law. So this is not a funds choosing to cancel cover. It was a legal requirement unless the member opted in or met an exemption.
Yeah, I don't think that the company should be able to deactivate the only superannuation that you have active without just a phone call to confirm. Like it would be a different thing if they sent you an email to say, if you wish to cancel your insurance, tick the box.
It would be very difficult to call every working Australian on the telephone and hope that they'd pick up that phone call and let them know.
A human being picking up the telephone, calling someone and saying, if you do not make this payment by this date, your insurance premium will lapse. Do you have any questions about that process or anything that you would like to, clarify? I don't think that they have millions of customers who may be falling into the space where they're not making payments regularly enough for their insurance to lapse. I don't think empathy comes into it in any way, shape or form. I don't think you could look at a widow or, a widower who is trying to raise children and think that it is in any way justifiable to deny them of financial support.
When Dylan's sister Anoni complained to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, she says the regulator's response was disappointing.
I went through AFCA to raise a complaint about the way his case had been handled. I contacted them initially. It took 5 months before I was allocated a case manager. Then when I spoke to the case manager, I got the distinct impression that she would like to have me off her books as quickly as possible.
An AFCA spokesperson told news.com.au that the Ombudsman Service often sees complaints where a superannuation fund member's insurance has been cancelled under the Protect Your Super rules, but is not able to comment on individual cases. They also reiterated that trustees are obligated to send 3 written warnings to members with inactive accounts and tell them how to keep their insurance. AFCA encourages everyone with a superannuation account to keep their fund updated with their current address details to make sure they receive correspondence like this.
The human cost of not having the life insurance policy has had a deep impact on Dylan's family. His wife Tully rents out the home Dylan had designed to cover the mortgage.
I had initially intended on moving into the property that we built together, but that is really not financially viable. So I rely on it being rented in order to pay the mortgage. People would sort of say, you could sell the property. Dylan designed the property. It's the only piece of his architectural work that I have. And so hanging on to that for the girls was really important to me. It's not just selling a house, it's selling his work.
Dylan's family is pushing for legislative change and hopes more protections can be put in place to warn people.
The government is certainly responsible for probably coming up with some ill thought out legislation. What really frustrates me, I suppose, is the fact that it seems quite unfair.
A spokeswoman for the Assistant Treasurer and Minister for Financial Services, Daniel Molino, told news.com.au that the Albanese government is working to improve the standards of service superannuation funds provide to members. We are taking action to raise the bar, including on member communications, by introducing mandatory and enforceable service standards for the superannuation system. The government will continue to monitor the standards to ensure the settings remain appropriate.